Hi, I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Zach, and this is episode 575 of the Lawyerist Podcast, part of the Legal Talk Network. Today, Stephanie talks with Lawyerist Lab business strategist Chad Fox about what it takes and how it feels to dig out of overwhelm at your office.
So I read something the other day on LinkedIn, Zach, and I just want to steal it. Here's what it said. If you're going to you make small decisions in business meetings, you make big decisions in a pub, and you make huge decisions on the beach. And so the point, obviously, is that sometimes you have to get out of your office, right? Like you need to step away from the day-to-day and give your mind, we talk about this sometimes, like, you need to give your brain space when you just even kind of shift your location, even just going to a restaurant. I mean, it doesn't have to, doesn't mean that alcohol had to be involved. They just said pub in the little meme. But when you step out of the walls, you get different perspective. You get different insight. You give yourself space. You think differently.
I like that. I kind of equate those mid-level decisions to, like, I make those on runs when I'm out doing something.
Exactly.
I like to go to coffee shops just to get different perspectives on working. But I think you're right. I hadn't really thought about that of like, well, I mean, we've talked about it before, but the big decision, I think you went to, was it Utah a couple years ago where you went on a big retreat, and I remember you came back fired up with a lot of big ideas.
Yeah, I went on my first solo retreat. I just intentionally went away for a couple of days by myself with an intention to think about the business and think about what was next for us and how I wanted to show up for the business. I mean, it turned into all these things. And here's the things. People listening may be like, that sounds great, but when do I have time? Or when am I going to do this? Right. Or how do I make this happen? And so obviously I'm coming in here with the good news is that we have created the space for you. So every year, hopefully listeners now have heard us talk about LabCon. It's our conference that we put on, but it isn't a typical CLE with people talking at you and lecture upon lecture. It's space for you to do that, just this, for you to step away from the day-to-day, for you to have bigger conversations, for you to get inspired by other people, hear what other people are doing, and think about how, even if that idea isn't the exact idea, like, is there something like that you could start to implement and work on for your business? And I wanted to mention it today because we always put a couple of spots away for people who aren't in the lab program, but maybe are interested. Maybe you're like, oh, I don't know, I want to go check these people out. I'm listening to Zach and Stephanie for years. Maybe I'd like to see them in real life and see what this whole thing's about. I think this is like the best way to come and do it.
We talk about LabCon hopefully a lot on here. And as you were talking about that, I was thinking, kind of why. And one of them is that, like, we believe in that. We don't do, I'm going to say something really kind of odd here, I guess. LabCon is not a revenue stream for us.
Oh yeah. No.
This is not something we do not come away, we're not selling LabCon to walk away with tons of money here. It's a thing we believe in. We think that stepping away and getting around people that are also thinking big is a way to really up your game. It will fire you up. It will get you, it will get you firing on more cylinders. I was talking with one of our longtime labsters the other day, just solving a totally separate issue related to podcasting, and she was like, "I really look forward to LabCon because I get to step away and just work on my stuff." Like that's why she looks forward to going to it, is that time set aside.
Yeah. And the other thing I love about it is a lot of conferences, which I love. I mean, look, I'm a conference junkie, I love going to them. But a lot of times what happens is you walk away with a notebook full of ideas that 6 months later, you're like, well, what did I get done? Because the phone started ringing and emails and all the things. And so also what I love about what we do is we give people space to start actually implementing those ideas so that you come home with something, not just an idea in a notebook, but it's started. Sometimes it's finished. I mean, it kind of depends on what the project is that you take on, but you're well on your way to having that thing for your business that you really need. So if this at all interests you, like, please, I mean, I love this event so much. And I get very excited by it as well. I mean, our whole team does. And this episode's dropping on August 21st. Our event starts on Sunday, September 28th. It's in Atlanta. So you get to come hang out with me in my hometown. And, it's such a great opportunity. So if you're at all interested, let's chat about it. Let me, get you one of those slots that we have open. And I don't think you'll regret it. I guarantee. In fact, I'll guarantee it. I know you'll get way more value out of it than what we ask for in return, which helps us sort of cover our costs. Because you're right, this is not a profit center. This is just we love it.
All right. Well, now here is Stephanie's conversation with Chad.
I am Chad Fox, and I'm one of the business strategists here at Lawyerist.
Hey, Chad, I am excited to welcome you back to the show. And today
Thanks.
I thought we'd kind of talk a little bit about the journey that law firm owners go through as they're building their firm. A lot of times when you're just starting in that stage one business, I mean, let's be honest, it's all about getting clients, right? Like they're just trying to get money in the door, trying to sustain yourself. And then at some point, things start to shift a little bit. And all of a sudden you realize you have work coming in, maybe more work than you can handle. Now you got to get all that work done. And so that's what we kind of around here call a stage 2, level 2 law firm. And I thought we might pick it up from there and talk about what these folks are dealing with. And you work with a lot of these firms. And what's it like when they first come to you?
When they first come to us, they're overwhelmed is a pretty popular one. They have all these ideas, all these things that they want to get done. It's all stuck in their head. They don't know how to prioritize it or how to get started. It just all seems so big. It all seems important. And one of the things that we do really well here at Lawyerist for all of us business strategists is help them to get all that out of their head, out into a place where we can look at it from 30,000 feet and then break it up into bite-sized chunks and actually start doing some of it.
And focusing on the right things, right? Because I think to your point, when it's all there swirling around, it's sort of hard to even know how to act, where to spend your time, where to even get started.
Yeah, what's urgent, what's noise, what can wait until later. I mean, that's definitely important. And they don't know. They have a hard time prioritizing those things.
Yeah. And so once you start helping them with that prioritization, I'm just curious, like, what have you noticed working with firms? What shifts for them? What changes?
Even after the very first call, you can see just a change from the beginning of the call to the end of the call. You can see a change in the energy with them. Just you see hope, right? Hope that it doesn't have to always be this way. That now we have a plan of how we're going to move forward, and they can see what the finish line looks like, and how we're going to get there. I think hope is a really good word that I think describes the immediate shift.
Yeah. Is it difficult to kind of figure out where to focus next, or is it usually pretty obvious to you?
It's usually pretty obvious. I mean, after the first 15, 20 minutes where we're kind of getting to know each other and really understanding what's going on in their business. And then the themes are surprisingly very similar across all the businesses. I think people come into it thinking that their situation is unique, and oftentimes with a few small differences, it's very similar.
Yeah. I think that surprises a lot of people, like you said, because they think I must be the only one
Mm-hmm.
experiencing this or going through this, or maybe they even have some negative talk about like, oh, I'm an idiot, or I should have figured this out sooner. Why am I here? And it's like, actually, you're probably right where you're supposed to be. Like a lot of people kind of have to. I mean, I hate to say this, but you kind of go through this journey to get to the next level.
Yeah, yeah, and they don't know what they don't know, right? I mean, how can you how can you figure this stuff out when you just don't even know where to start or how to prioritize it?
Yeah. And I know that a lot of folks too, that I've worked with over the years, they really appreciate hearing other people in the community raise their hands and say they're struggling with these things, and then they're just like, "Oh, I'm not alone." Like there is a help. So that's always a good feeling too.
I do love that about our community and how willing everyone is to jump in and help each other and offer their ideas. And I think that's such a valuable piece of what we have here is the community and just having that peer group.
Yeah. I know one of the things that you talk to lawyers about is this idea of helping them dream big, but then to break it down. And I'm curious of how does that process for most lawyers work? I feel like sometimes they get stuck, and I'm just kind of and what have you noticed?
Yeah, something that I see a lot is that they don't know how to dream big. They get so stuck on what's realistic. And I really have to push them to almost make it seem impossible, right? When we say dream big, it's like think about what's almost impossible. I always tell my clients on my calls, and this is usually always on our first or second call, I always tell them shoot for the moon, because even if you miss, you'll still land in the stars. Right. And so we set impossible goals that maybe seem impossible, but are not actually impossible, and trying to get them out of that place of being stuck in what's realistic, what's likely.
Yeah, it's occurring to me while you're saying that, us lawyers, it doesn't surprise me that we struggle here, because I think like we're so logical and we're so like by nature kind of precedent driven. I know sometimes, my husband, it drives him crazy, or it drives my family crazy, because I get stuck in the details. Like if he says something, I almost want to I'll come back and be like, no, that isn't exactly what you meant, and I get into the nitty gritty details that he's like, this is not important. But my lawyer brain is like, no, the details matter. And we have to be precise. And I think when you're asking someone to dream big, that feels like the opposite of precision.
Yeah, you're really, really pushing them to step way outside of their comfort zone. Oftentimes, is most attorneys that I've worked with are not artistic minded, right? And so, like you said, very, very logical, and I also think that that's why they thrive in our program, is because they're so logical and want that structure, and we help provide that. But yeah, getting them to dream big is definitely one of the things that I have to push them to do.
Do you have a couple of examples of what would that big dream look like? Because I think that might help our listeners kind of understand what we're talking about.
One thing I see is what do they want to see the size of their firm become? They come into it thinking that, I'm good with it just being me, and maybe if I could, have one other attorney and maybe two paralegals and an assistant, and that's fine. That's a nice practice. You and an attorney and a few staff members. I mean, that's a nice practice, nice size practice. But what would big look like? And or maybe maybe big means that it's 10 attorneys, right? And 5 paralegals, and we have a handful of admin staff, and we own the building, right? Like the things like that are when we start dreaming big.
Yeah, I love pushing people to be like, what we're so used to firms only looking the way they've looked the last 150 years, that what does it look like to have something, that maybe you run remotely, that you could work from anywhere in the world and still have a business. And that's a little bit harder if we're litigation focused, if we have to be in court. But for a lot of practices, we do have people who go and spend the summers now in Europe and travel and do things that they didn't think were possible before.
Yeah. It's funny that you say that, because I had a call with a client yesterday, and she feels guilty about having achieved that, right? I mean, she's in that position where she doesn't have to be in the day to day. And it's a combination of feeling guilty about it, but also in a way kind of missing the grind of it. So that's something that that she's wrestling with, right? But yeah, I think you don't, just on the former part of that, you don't have to feel guilty, because it's your business and this is what you've envisioned. And as the owner of the business, you've now become a business owner versus a business operator. And that's kind of the vision I try to plant for people when I start working with them. Is right now you're an operator, you have a job, right? Operators have jobs. But when you can become a business owner, then you actually have freedom.
I think you're hitting on something, though, that a lot of folks, I don't want to feel like I'm better than my team members. Like if I ask them to do something, I want to be in the trenches doing it with them. And so there is a little bit of hesitation around, should I be asking other people to do things when I'm going to be away? I'm going to go do this other focus. Is that fair? And what would you say to that person?
Yeah, I think it is fair, because you've paid your dues. You've been most likely you've been where they are at some point, and you've worked your way up into the trenches. You've done the grind. You've done the hustle. You've built this business. You're providing a great environment for your team to work in, and if you've done that well, your team wants to be. If you've done that well, your team wants to succeed for you. They want to see the firm succeed. They're bought into the mission of the firm and the values of the firm, and they want to help. They want to do their part, and they don't want to let you down.
Yeah, I kind of like the idea that if you do this well and you build a great team and you provide for the team, that and everybody has their role and responsibility on the team. And I think that's, it kind of brings me back to a story I used to tell when my very first legal assistant found me early on. I mean, I was a couple weeks into practice, and she saw me at the copy machine, and she was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Well, clearly I'm making copies. I mean, like, what do you think I'm doing?" And she's like, "Okay, here's the deal. I make copies. You write briefs. Like, you're capable, you're trained to do legal research and write briefs and do all these things that I can't do, but I can do this job and I do it really well. And the client wants to pay, they don't want to pay for you to do my job. They want me to do my job. You do your job, and then we're all happy." And as a young attorney, that was such a valuable lesson for her to teach me. And I still think, Linda, to this day, because it is, it was good. I'm not demeaning her by asking her to make copies for me. It's not me saying like I'm not capable of making copies. It's just my job was to do something different, and her job was to make copies.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a really good point. And it makes me think of a concept I learned a long time ago, and this might be a little bit off topic. We always hear this cliche of we're not supposed to care what others think, right? But I think in business, that's not really true. And I always used to tell, when we own our franchise, I used to tell my managers, you have to manage perceptions with your team, right? You can't have that mindset of, oh, well, they don't need to know what I'm doing or any those kinds of things. You really do have to manage perceptions. And one way that you can do that really well with your team so that they can see what you're working on is in your team meetings. Like if we have regular team meetings and we are all reporting on the things that we're working on and how we did from last week to this week on the things that we're working on, what we got accomplished. And that goes for the owner too. The owner is reporting to their team on the things that they're accountable for and how they did and what roadblocks came up. And you do that stuff really, really well. It builds amazing camaraderie amongst your team, first of all, but then you're also always managing those perceptions. So your team will never say, well, what does Stephanie do all day? I mean, we're out here busting our butts and I have no idea what she does, goes on vacation. I don't ever see her working. I mean, I think if you build a good team, you probably don't have to deal too much with that, but I still think it's a great exercise and eliminates any possibility for that stuff happening.
To that point, one of the things I know you do and work with attorneys on is what should be on their plate and what shouldn't be on their plate, and how do they get the things that are on their plate done. And this feels like such a big struggle for so many people. And so what do you tell those folks?
That's one of my favorite topics to go with. That's usually first call we have that conversation, especially if they're overwhelmed. Because usually if they're overwhelmed, it's because they're doing too many $20 an hour tasks. And so what I tell them to do is go through and write down everything that you do throughout the course of your day, and then go back through that list and put an hourly rate next to it. Is that a $20 an hour task, or whatever you charge by the hour, whether you're flat fee or bill by the hour? Figure out what you're making per hour, and then put that dollar amount next to the attorney stuff, right? The stuff that you're actually making $300, $400, $500 an hour doing. And when they go through and do that, it's an aha moment. Even when I tell them to give them that example and say, how many $25 an hour tasks are you doing? And how many $300 an hour tasks are you doing? That is almost an immediate mindset shift.
Yeah. I love that. And I love to also remind them that working on your business, like playing the role of CEO and building a healthier business, doing all the things that we're talking about, is actually high value work. Because the mistake that a lot of lawyers make is, we have a concept of billable and not billable. And so if it's billable, it's for the client. If it's not billable, it's everything else, which in this example would include your $25 task and like creating a strategy for the business, or creating a new, maybe we're going to create a new business offering and flat fee it, and it would generate a ton of money. Well, that doesn't, just because it's not billable doesn't mean it's not valuable. And that's the mistake I think we make too, is think, well, I need to only be focused here and discount or put all the non-billable / in their mind not valuable things to last.
Yeah, that's a good distinction, because we're not saying that the stuff you're not billing for is not a $500, $300, $400, $500 task. We're saying to think like a CEO, not like your admin assistant or like your paralegal, right?
Right.
Maybe paralegal is not the best example, but
even associate, right? There's some legal work. Even if we're doing legal work, we know this to be the case all the time. Lawyers should be delegating work down. So there's probably associate level work that you can do. I had some folks that we called it the no first draft rule, because it was like, why are you doing a first draft? Somebody else could be doing the first draft, and you should be editing it and revising it and making it that much better, not starting from a blank piece of paper. So I think it's fair.
So maybe there's another tier there, right? It's the $25 an hour task. There's the $150 an hour task, which I think that would fall in place of. And then there's where you value your time, right? What's your highest and best use? That's something that you like to say, right? What's your highest and best use? And strategy is a highest and best use. And to the point of what we were talking about before, that's also something to communicate with your team, is that the things you're working on are what your highest and best use are to the firm, and where you're going to be able to add more value, continue to provide more opportunities for them to grow. And
and so maybe kind of to bring it full circle, one of the things that you really help lawyers do is, okay, they come in overwhelmed. We're going to get it all out of your head. We're going to get it on paper so you can see what the whole universe looks like. We're going to audit your time to see where you should be spending time. And then I think probably one of the most helpful things that we sometimes forget, even that we're doing this, is that lawyers don't know, okay, I know I need to be the CEO. I know I need to think strategically about my business. I just don't even understand. They might not understand, like, what does that mean? What does that look like? What kinds of things am I doing? What am I thinking about? How am I doing that? And that's what I really love, that we come in and say, actually, we've got this for you. Just follow this system and it's going to work out just fine.
Yeah. And they come in and often are missing much of a system. I mean, it's just, they're in the day-to-day of working in the business, like you said, and we help them to learn what it's like to work on the business, and carving out time to work on your business is an important thing that we really get people into the habit of doing.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like that's like kind of do not pass go or do not start. I don't know what the right phrase is there, but like you have to do that first. Like, are you willing to actually commit to like, I need to focus on my business. That's the only way this thing is going to get better and become what I want it to be.
Yeah. And you have to protect that time at all costs, right? And that's an important piece. And yeah, if it's earlier in the week, I always say is better, because I always think it's interesting when I start working with attorneys and Friday is their day to do that. I'm like, yeah, but you're going into the weekend. It's like, maybe earlier in the week is better, so that you have time to implement some of this stuff before you go into your week.
Yeah. So Chad, what this all sounds great, but what does this look like in real life?
Yeah. So one of my lapsters that I work with, we've been working together. I guess it's been about 7 or 8 months now. He came in, similar situation, overwhelmed, no visibility on his finances, right? And kind of, had a little bit of a team. And, now just this morning, he sent me an email. He just promoted 3 people to new positions, to higher positions, and hired people to take those positions, and then just brought in another person. So, really a 4-person shift in his law firm because of the growth that he's had just over the last 6 or 7 months. And I mean, he does the work. He never misses the calls. He is in it, and it's showing. I mean, he is reaping the rewards of all the hard work he's been doing.
I love that. And I love the idea of ending on hope. Like it doesn't have to be so hard. I think that maybe that's what I want people to hear, is that we get it. We know that it feels really hard. It feels like you're in it. How could the path look different? And the answer is like, it can. I mean, it's going to take a little bit of work to get there. It's not just going to be like snap your fingers and it happens. I wish we could do that for people.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be such a heavy burden all the time.
Yeah, it doesn't. And it shouldn't be, because when we get into business, we have dreams and aspirations of owning our own business and having freedom. And then oftentimes we get into it and then we get overwhelmed and we can't make apples from oranges, and it just seems like it's never going to slow down, and we're just never going to have time to go on vacation. Or we have a lapster who, when he came to us, he was working 16, 17-hour days, and he was getting home at like 9:00 at night. And those are the kinds of things that should not be the norm, right? If you have one-offs, you have one-offs, but that should never be the norm as a business owner.
I love that. Well, thanks, Chad, for chatting with us today and giving us all a little bit of hope of what our law practices and firms can look like.
Yeah, thanks for having me.